Dear Muslims, everything in our worship service is a ritual that trains us to obey God. Did you open with prayer, Sheikh Tajani? Did you put your hands up like this? You didn't do the call to prayer. But the call to prayer of the Muslims is like this. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God is great. Well, this is an act of surrender. Put your hands up. Oh, when somebody does that and they got a gun on you, you put your hands up. Yeah, what is it? What you want? What? When a Muslim puts his hands up, he's saying to God, I'm tired. I don't want to fight you no more. I've been rebelling against you, but Allah, I know that you are great. And I surrender. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. I'm surrendering. Then the Muslim clasps the right hand over the left, because the left hand is the weak side. And unless the strength of the right takes control of the weakness of the left, then you will never be able to bow down to God. So grip your right hand over your left. If you know anything about karate and judo, you can twist a man just by that wrist. So when you hold at the wrist, you got control now. Look. This is, you clasp over here. I've seen some do it here, but mainly all clasp right here, because this is where we're in trouble. Not that our stomachs are extended, distended, but this represents appetites. And that's what got us in trouble. Appetite for food, appetite for sex, appetite for things, and that needs to be what? Controlled. But you can put your hand over here all day long. Put your hand over your stomach. You don't know what you're doing, not in harmony mentally with what you're doing. You're not developing the will to resist. Then you hear the Muslim do this. In all the Asian cultures, when we meet our Asiatic brothers, sisters, you see them? It's a gesture of honor. It's a gesture of respect. Well, I respect God, so I bow to God and His greatness. But then there's a time that bowing is not good enough. Then the Muslim will get down.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and defend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judges, and none can judge against Thee. And he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee. and I bear witness that Muhammad is thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Surely, the best way to strive to be upright in a sinful world is to pray continuously to the one true God, whose proper name is Allah, for guidance. As we are generally sinful and easily yield to temptations, it is only fitting to keep up prayer. Allah, the one true God, has blessed us with the universe, a sun to shine and brighten up the heavens, giving light for us to see, warmth, enabling us to live, and causing vegetation to grow and all life to exist. We reside on the planet through his will. So why should we not pray and continuously thank him for his privilege? He it is who created the atmosphere for us to breathe. He it is, he it is who created all good vegetation for us to eat, plus the fowl and other animals in which we partake of daily. He it is who created the beautiful atmosphere in which we live, in which we, with our own hands, mutilate and destroy for lack of proper guidance. We cannot improve upon the nature in which Allah has we cannot improve upon the nature in which Allah has created all beautiful things, yet we try. We cannot substitute the original beauty with artificial creations, yet we try. So let us realize the power of Allah, that without him, we cannot exist and make subsistence to Allah through the prayers to him, through our prayers to him. Prayer is obligatory in Islam. And remember Allah's favor upon you in the covenant which he made with you when you said, we hear and we obey and fear Allah. Surely Allah knows well what is in our minds. O ye who believe, be steadfast in the cause of Allah, bearing witness to equity, and let not a people's enemy incite you to act otherwise than with justice, says the Holy Quran. Be always just, that is neither righteousness, and fear Allah. Surely Allah is aware of what you do. Allah has promised those who believe and do good deeds that they will have forgiveness and a great reward. We owe our very lives to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Why should we not thank him? Our every good thought we owe to Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. Surely, as often as we sin, we turn to him in prayer. He is most merciful and grants us pardon, and oftentimes we draft back again to some other flaw. For this, we must turn to him again, asking to be forgiven. Surely Allah knows what is in our hearts, and what is more, he is oft forgiving. He it is who is all the perfect one, who knows our imperfection and pardons most through his messenger. Remember, and the best way for remembrance of Allah is through prayer. The 5 prayers of the day are spiritual refreshments, and he who cleanses himself in and out no filthiness. It would be an insult to invite his Lord's Holy Spirit into a house, the outside of which was filthy. Why should we not pray 5 times a day to make our why shouldn't we pray 5 times a day to our maker, since we feed our bodies 3 times a day? Why is it so important that we would keep away from prayer to the originator of the heavens and the earth? Let us give praises to our God and submit ourselves to the Lord of the worlds and learn how to pray the right prayers in the right manner. Let us serve the one true God, whose proper name is Allah, in the right state. My Lord, make me to keep up prayer, and my offspring too. O Lord, accept the prayer. O Lord, grant thy protection to me and my parents, and to be faithful on the day when the reckoning will be taken. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Happy Monday. Welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward, and I'm continuing my reading and review of Elijah Muhammad's message to the Black man in America. And this chapter is prayer service, prayer in Islam. And basically this chapter, he's going over prayer, what prayer is, how to pray, why they pray, when to pray, who to pray to, the right direction to pray, what's good and bad about prayer, all the things he believes you need to know about prayer and implementing prayer into your life. If you are a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jew, if whatever your religious path, prayer is going to be a part of that religious path. So making sure that you incorporate the right prayer. But he's saying, if you're going to be a follower of the Nation of Islam, if you're going to follow his teachings, he's going to give you instructions on how to pray and how he believes that if you pray this specific way, then Allah will hear your prayers. He believes that because we are in America and we're in the West and we're under this white supremacy system, that there are barriers in between the prayer reaching Allah. So he wants to help remove the barriers from the black person who chooses the path of Islam. Once again, he believes that if you choose the path of Islam, then when the white nation is destroyed, you will not be destroyed with the white nation, because he says this is the beginning of the end of the white nation, of the rule of the white race, of the rule of white supremacy, because he believes Allah is coming to end all white supremacy. So what about the other supremacy? I hope Allah ends all the other supremacy too. Don't forget the Arabs had been enslaving African people for like 1,300 years. So don't forget about that one too now. But he's basically giving you his ideas and his concepts on prayer as given to him by Wallace Fard Muhammad. So let's jump back into it, page 137, the second paragraph. O prophet, surely we have sent you as a witness and as a bearer of good news and as a warner and as one inviting to Allah by his permission and as a light-giving torch. Come to success. Prayer and obeisance to Allah will bring you success. The prayer is reciting standing erect with face towards the east with hands raised and declaring to the one God, Allah, that he has turned himself to Allah, the originator of the heavens. This prayer and the positions are especially designed and worded for those lost sheep, the so-called Negroes, who have been lost from the knowledge of their God and the people, and now declare that they are turned again to their God, Allah, and are upright to him. And this part of this chapter is called the significance of prayer. He's getting into why prayer is significant. Imagine a native Muslim who never was lost from Allah and his people in the Holy Land or Holy City reciting the above prayer. The prayer has been turned into the wrong direction. He is in the West, looking again due east, confessing his faults for going astray from his God and people and declaring that he has been unjust to himself. He confesses his faults and declares that none can grant him protection from his faults but Allah. He further asked the evil morals be turned away from him and that he be guided to the best of morals. He is not leaving the infidels of the West who brought him into darkness and pleading to be guided to better morals. Surely we, the so-called Negroes, lost all of our good morals among the enemies of the West. The type of the so-called Negroes is given in many parables of the Bible. In fact, if the Bible is rightly understood, it is referring to none other than the so-called Negroes and their enemies, the chosen people of God to whom the God gave the firstborn, the convert, and even the Mahdi. Christ offered his life to restore the so-called Negroes again to their own kind. So once again, he's telling you from his belief that black people are the lost tribe of Shabazz, and black people need to find their way back to Allah, find their way back to Islam, and he has the path for us to find our way back to Islam and back to Allah. But remember, they have their own brand of Islam, and that's what we're learning from reading this book that Elijah Muhammad has given to him by Wallace Fard Muhammad. They have their own brand of Islam that they practice based off of their beliefs. Especially, remember going back to last week's video saying that Yaqub created all the evil white people and the origins of black people, even saying that we are the tribe, the lost tribe of Shabazz. That even goes back into the beliefs of Elijah Muhammad is given to him by Fard Muhammad. So the prayer service is divided into two parts. Now we're getting it, and remember, this is the significance of prayer. So the prayer service is divided into two parts. One is to be said in private and the other to be performed in congregation, preferably in a mosque. While the private part is meant simply for the development of the inner self of man, the public part has other ends as well in view, ends that indeed make the Islamic prayer a mighty force in the unification of the human race. Now, his verbiage is a bit different in this chapter when he's talking about prayer, especially when he's talking about all mankind, all different races of people being able to pray to Allah, because even now he's talking about the unification of the human race. But remember, if the white people are evil and Allah is going to destroy the evil white people, what would be the purpose of a unification? But I digress. In the first place, this gathering of all people living in the same vicinity 5 times a day in the mosque is a help to the establishment of healthy social relations. In the daily service, those relations are limited to a narrow circle, i.e., to members of the same neighborhood. But the circle becomes wider in the weekly Friday service with gatherers together, all Muslim members of a particular locality, to become still wider in the 2 great Eid gatherings. Thus, prayer promotes social relations between the different sections of the Muslim community. Far more important than this, however, it is leveling of social differences brought about by means of congregational prayer. Once within the doors of the mosque, every Muslim feels himself in an atmosphere of equity and love. Before their maker, they all stand shoulder to shoulder, the king alone with his poor subject, the rich arrayed in gorgeous robes, the beggar clad in rags. Nay, the king nor rich man standing in the back row will have to lay his head, prostrating himself to God at the feet of a slave or a beggar standing in the front. There could be no more leveling influence in the world. Difference, rank, wealth, and color vanish within the mosque, and quite a new atmosphere, an atmosphere of brotherhood, equality, and love, totally different from the outside world, prevails within the holy precincts. And see, once again, that's different from what he was saying earlier about how they view it from the Nation of Islam versus Islam as a whole. Because now he's preaching brotherhood and people from all walks of life, people from all races, all shades, all colors. But earlier, he was saying that, well, we need to make sure we separate ourselves from white people, and white people are the intruders into Islam. So that's interesting. To be able to breathe 5 times a day in an atmosphere of perfect peace in a world of strife and struggle, the equality where inequality is the order of the day, and the love amid the petty jealousness and enemies of the day of daily life is indeed a blessing. But it is more than a blessing, for it is the great lesson of life. Man has to work amidst inequalities, amidst strife and struggle, amidst scenes of hatred and enmity. And yet he is drawn out of these 5 times a day and made to realize the equality, fraternity, and love are the real sources of human happiness, which I agree. The time spent on prayer is not therefore wasted, even from the point of view of active humanitarianism. On the contrary, the best use of it is made in learning those great lessons which make life worth living. And the lessons of fraternity, equality, and love, when put to the practice in daily life, serve as foundations for the unification of the human race and of the lasting civilization of mankind. In fact, the 5 daily congregational prayers are meant, among other things, to carry into practice a theoretical lessons of equality and fraternity for which Islam stands. And however much Islam may have preached in words of equality of man and the fraternity of the community of Islam, all this would have remained a dead letter had it not been translated into the everyday life of man through the institution of 5 daily congregational prayers. Now, the 5 daily prayers. I have no problem with the 5 daily prayers. We're talking about discipline. We're talking about structure. We're talking about routine. We're talking about values. We're talking about instituting stability into an individual. Because think about the discipline that it takes for a person to actually pray the way they're supposed to pray 5 times a day, to be able to draw yourself away from the world and give your devotion 5 times a day. That takes discipline, that takes structure. But also, I do want to point out that the structure isn't built just through prayer. It's built through adhering to the guidelines of whatever religion you choose to follow. Is adhering to the doctrine, adhering to the information, adhering to the holy scriptures, living what you read, living what you say, living what you pray, acting it out. Prayer without works, faith without works is dead. Prayer without works is dead. Prayer has to be followed with right action, with correct action, right? If prayer is not followed with right or correct action, you are just talking. You're just talking. And it's cool that you pray 5 times a day, but you're just talking 5 times a day. Are you putting into action anything, or are you just praying? Now, the prayer itself is great, but it has to be coupled with something. But if you yourself chose Islam and you can't adhere to the 5 prayers a day and pray correctly, because from my understanding, there are specific guidelines and specific ways that are outlined for you to pray. Farrakhan was hitting on that in the opening video, in the opening clip, when he was showing you how you should submit yourself, because Islam translates to submission to Allah. So the whole concept of the 5 daily prayers is 5 times a day you submit yourself to Allah. But before you submit yourself, you cleanse yourself. You cleanse your hands. All exposed parts of your body are cleansed, even your mouth. You cleanse it, because, like I read earlier, what sense does it make to invite a Holy Spirit into an unclean vessel? So that's a part of the discipline. That's a part of the structure, to make sure that you are cleansed before you engage in these prayers 5 times a day. But prayer, no matter if you do it 5 times a day, 1 time a day, 3 times a day, 2 times a day, make sure that you are taking it serious, and make sure you are not just praying, but you're following it with action. So we see him turning himself to Allah to recite the prayer of the righteous. The absence of Allah is like the sun and all its brilliance on him in the early morning after a long, dreary night, and his first thought was to rise up and prepare for the day. We see him washing his hands and all the exposed parts of his body. We see him washing his face, his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Even those wet hands go over his head to clean his very scalp, because he is now turning for the first time to his God, Allah. And looking upon the presence of God and the light which he has done upon him makes him to feel he was unclean in that he needed to clean up. Even the outer appearance is to be cleaned in the presence of God to hear his words of guidance, right? Cleanse yourself before you present yourself to God. He stretches forth his hands while standing as erect as a soldier before his captains at attention. He has said that he has surely turned himself to Allah. He has taken an oath that he will not worship any God but Allah, and that his prayer, his sacrifice, his life, and his death are all for Allah. He has declared that Allah has no associate, and he is commanded not to set up any rivals with Allah. He is now ready to enter the prayer service of the Nation of Islam and to recite the oft-prepared prayer. He closes his eyes against looking upon the world of evils and filth. He has washed his ears from the hearing of evil. He takes no more part in listening to the conversations of evildoers, because that's a part of cleansing yourself. He has washed his nostrils from even the smell of things offensive to the intelligent and decent society of righteousness. He has washed out his mouth, cleansed it as far down his throat as water could go without strangling him. He washes his mouth from speaking of evil and planning evil and indecent things. He takes no more part in using his mouth and his tongue for the service of evil. Now the mouth and the language his tongue utters are saying that which he believes will please Allah and the nation of righteousness. He has washed his hands in all exposed parts of his body. His hands are washed from the taking part in evil and indecent things. His feet are washed from the evil service of walking, standing, and sitting in the presence and path of the wicked. He cleansed them to walk towards Allah and stand in his holy presence. His body garments are no more filthy, but now made sacred to the service of Allah, because there's a specific way you present yourself to your God, to God, period. Or however you see God, there's a specific way that you present yourself. There's a righteous way, and then there's a way that's not righteous, a secular way, a way that will be deemed wrong. You don't approach God the same way you approach your friends. That's what he's getting at. You don't approach God the same way you approach people in the real world. You should be approaching everybody with respect, but you approach God with reverence. You cleanse yourself inside out, mind, body, and soul. You cleanse yourself out before you go before God and pray and speak with God and ask for things. Preparing yourself properly. There's a time and place for everything, but this stuff translates. This stuff translates, and it should translate. If you're taking this, if you're truly practicing Islam the way you're supposed to be practicing, it should translate into you being a great person. It should translate into you being a righteous person. It should translate you into being a person who is uplifted, a person who helps others, a person who's making the world a better place. It should not translate into wrongdoings or evil doings or even manipulation. Right? You should not be using, if you're the righteous person, you should not be using religion for your own political gain. The righteous person. But and I want to reiterate, just because you pray doesn't mean you're righteous. A Muslim must say his prayers when he says that we are Muslims, and then we must give praises to the one whom we have submitted to do his will. If we are believers in the divine supreme being, we are always in need of his help one way or another. Therefore, it is necessary that we give praises to him and thanks and ask forgiveness for any wrongdoings on our part. Praising his name in the saying of prayers, pouring out the heart's sentiment before and to our divine supreme being shows submission and proves to the world that our lives and our death are all for Allah. This above prayer is divided into two parts. One part called fard and the other one tradition. Or should I say, it is tradition that the Muslims should pray and give praises to Allah. It is not something just started in the time of Muhammad, 1400 years ago, but it has always been the righteous way to pray and give praises to Allah. Prayer is something that we must and are compelled to do if we expect guidance and mercy from Allah. And Allah is using fard as his name here on his coming teachings, us that if we expect to be successful, we must bow in submission to the will of Master Fard Muhammad, the all-wise God in person, who is worthy to be praised and praised much. And so I have, since reading this book, I've come across some information, and I've come to the realization and recall the conversation that I've had with my father in the past. A lot of people look at the Nation of Islam in different light than other people who practice Islam, because of the beliefs and the origin stories and things like that, and also believing that Master Fard Muhammad is God, that Master Fard Muhammad was God in human form and came back to save black people from the white people. But you have to understand, going into the religion, you can't go into religions blind. Blind belief, the days of blind belief are over. I don't care who's giving you the information. I don't care how charismatic they are. The days of blind belief are over. The days of just believing something because somebody said it is over. Read and read to understand and comprehend for yourself. Seek understanding. If you can't seek understanding, you might need to back away from this religion or this sect or this specific thing that you're following, because it will not help you. It will hurt you more than it will help you. You will be in worse shape than ever out here really thinking that what you believe is true and you haven't even verified it. But if you're going to follow Islam, follow Islam. Follow it. If you're going to be a Christian, be a Christian. If you're going to be a Jew, be a Jew. Once again, I'm not here to tell you what to follow. I'm just here reading the information and breaking it down and making sure it makes sense to us for our own liberation. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're concerned with, our own liberation. But these are pieces of the puzzle. So now he's getting into preparations for prayer and its meaning. So 1, the washing and cleansing of all exposed parts of the body of filth and uncleanliness, stand and bow before the Lord of the worlds. 2, the rinsing out of the mouth, the impure and evil that the mouth is guilty of speaking. 3, the washing of the hands that are subject to the handling of clean and unclean things. They are cleansed to be spread before Allah, the Lord of the worlds. The Holy Quran says that our hands will bear witness against the evildoers on the day of resurrection. They will say, oh hands, why hast thou borne witness against me? The hands will say, as Allah makes everything to bear witness, so has he made us to bear witness. Whatever we do, every member of our body a part in it. Every member of every member of our body plays a part in it. 4, the feet are washed up to the ankles if they are exposed. The feet should be washed once every day, even though one wears shoes. 5, a total bath should be taken if there were sexual relations. He is now ready for prayer. He stands erect with his face and body towards the rising of the sun in the east, in the direction that the earth is rotating and all the planets. In this direction is the holy city of Mecca, and the only holy place on earth. From the direction do we look for Allah and his angels to come judge the world. He lifts his open hands with his thumbs pointing towards his earlobes. He says, Allah is the greatest. Twice, I bear witness that none deserves to be worshipped besides Allah. And that's repeated twice. And that Muhammad is his last apostle. That's repeated twice as well. The regular prayer caller in the minarets of the mosque calls the prayer from 4 directions: the east, west, north, and south. He repeats, Allah is the greatest 4 times. He begins his prayer by saying, surely I have turned myself to thee, being upright to him who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not of the polytheists. Surely my prayer and sacrifices, my life and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. No associate has he, and this am I commanded. O Allah, thou art the king. There is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thy servant. And so the meanings, to get into the meanings of this. First, the cleansing of the body before asking prayer to the most honored and wisest person in the universe, the Lord and King over all, none is his equal, shows respect for him. He desires to show in words in his prayers that his words are clean and coming from a clean heart. Should not that clean heart be a clean body? If one is offered clean water in an unclean surface of a glass, will he accept it? This is so with a Muslim. He believes in cleanliness internally as well as externally. And you should keep yourself clean, keep yourself up internally and externally. But remember, the cleanliness, there's a physical aspect of cleanliness and there's a spiritual aspect of cleanliness as well. To be able to cleanse oneself of filth, to be able to cleanse oneself physically of filth, but spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, to cleanse oneself of filth, to wash away all the evils, to wash away all the dirt, to wash away all the grime, to wash away all the bad of the world, the bad of the day, the bad that you were exposed to, whether it was in the physical form, emotional form, mental form, psychological form, any of those different forms, right? Don't just think about cleansing yourself in the physical form. You're cleansing yourself to present yourself in front of the progenitor of life, the giver, the force of life. The force of life, you're presenting yourself in front of the force of life, God. You're presenting yourself in front of God. If God is pure, you have to be as pure as you can be to receive. Otherwise, the reception won't be there. That's the idea that Elijah Muhammad is getting towards you. That's why you must cleanse yourself. But don't just think about cleansing yourself in the physical form. Think about cleansing yourself overall. But to take it a step further, don't just think about cleansing yourself in that moment of bathing yourself. Cleansing yourself is a daily thing, all day, every day. Your thoughts, your actions, your words, how you react to things, all those things. The cleansing process is ongoing. It's not just a one-time thing, or it's not just when you or physically putting your hands in water and putting soap to your body, to your exposed parts, and cleansing yourself to make yourself clean. It's an ongoing, everyday thing, what you're doing all day to cleanse yourself, to prepare yourself to receive the divine messaging from God. You have to look at it like that. You can't compartmentalize this. God cannot be compartmentalized. The touch of Islam makes the lost found have a sense of dignity, and for the first time, he feels that he should do something for himself, and he desires to rid himself of the things that hinder him. He therefore now prays the following prayer. O Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, and I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness, and I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardness, and I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of man. O Allah, suffice thou me with which is lawful to keep me away from what is prohibited, and with thy grace make me free from want of what is beside thee. So we, the lost found, should repeat the above prayer 7 times a day, for it sums up our greatest hindrance to freedom and self-independence. We must get away from the idea of depending on others to do for us for what we can do for ourselves. Fear, cowardice, and laziness are our greatest enemies. We are brave enough to fight to preserve the white race's independence, but not brave enough for self and kind. Shake such shackles off and face the consequences like men, and we will be free. Hallelujah, right? We must get away from the idea of depending on others to do for us what we can do for self. Fear, cowardice, and laziness are our greatest enemies. We are brave enough to fight to preserve the white race's independence, but we're not brave enough to fight for our own. That's the conditioning that we must overthrow. That's the conditioning that Elijah Muhammad himself is fighting and working for us to overthrow. He's just doing it in his own way. Replacing that Negro mind state. We don't need white people to survive. We put ourselves in a bad position to be dependent upon them, but we don't need them to survive. We have everything we need for ourselves. We just have to remember it. We have to remember that and remember who we are. If we can do that, oh man, we would become powerful. Our mindset, our current mindset keeps us powerless. For us to become powerful, we must believe that we don't need anybody else for our survival. We must become truly independent. You're not independent because you have your own job, your own car, and your own house, whether you're male or female. You're independent because you are fully autonomous, and your total survival is up to you. And you can thrive. You can thrive even though your total survival is up to you. The Bible again puts it in Jesus's words, as he says to the disciples that they must even hate their mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, or they could not be his followers. But here today in America, as you may know, the Christian teaches that we should love everybody, that this is just the deceitful ways of the devils to get love and honor from the people of God under the religion that they organized in order to oppose the true religion of Allah, Islam. I agree with him on this. I don't agree in loving your enemies. I know some of you may do, and I see it in the comments and stuff, but I don't agree with loving your enemies. Know your enemies, learn your enemies, and defeat your enemies, and separate yourself from your enemies as far as possible as you can. How has loving our enemies actually practically helped us as Black people in America? How has that mindset really helped us become powerful people, become free people? How? You can't tell me. It's a concept. It's a concept that was given to us by our slave masters for us to remain docile, for us to remain in this position, to us to remain niggas. Got to free that. You got to free that. Loving your enemies does nothing but help your enemies. Of course, your enemies will teach you to love your enemies because it helps them. They benefit from it. If they didn't benefit from it, they wouldn't tell you to do it. Think about it. When told that white people are not Muslims, some of the ignorant Muslims falsely charge me in their writings and sayings, not only do I not represent Islam, but that it is not recognized by the Muslim world. This is just the enemies of Islam and the so-called Negroes of America desire that the so-called Negroes believe. They sow such lies in the hearts of the weak Muslims and the so-called Negroes in general. You are going to be greatly surprised. I have Allah on my side to bring my people out of the darkness and power of our enemies. Is not he God sufficient? And most surely he is with me and I with him. You most certainly will be the loser if you are not on our side. Now, even Malcolm X learned the truth about this. There are all types of Muslims throughout the world. I've seen them with my own eyes. Seen them on TV, read about them, seen it with my own eyes in real life. There are all types of Muslims across the world. There are white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired Muslims who are practicing Islam right now as we speak. Once again, like I said earlier, the brand of Islam that Elijah Muhammad teaches is different from, I guess you could say, traditional Islam that we're used to. So they do have a point there. I'm not bashing what the Nation of Islam has. I just recognize the difference in it. I'm aware enough to see the difference. So he goes on to say, we now see that the lost found members of the great black nation, the original people of the sun, are greatly improving their prayer services and obedience to Almighty God, who in the person of Master Farad found them and to whom praises are due forever, and brings us Islam, the knowledge of God, our friend, the devil, and our enemy. Oh, he says, our God, our friend, and the devil, our enemy. So he's not saying the devil is our friend. So I want to make that clear. So this last point I want to read to you for this chapter is, but today his prayer bears witness since the coming of Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom be given praise forever, that he receives help from God. He received no protection from the God somewhere above the sun, moon, and stars that the enemy pointed out to him, and the rest of the poor lost found members of the Asiatic nation, the nation of Islam. The lost found received no help or protection until the appearance of Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praises are forever due. So once again, I have no problem with prayer. I can see the discipline and I can see the usefulness in prayer. Who you pray to is your choice. I just hope that whoever you're praying to is you're actually getting practical results from it. Because if you're not actually getting practical results from the person that you pray to, then you might need to reevaluate who you're praying to and why you're praying and how you're praying and all these different things. But this chapter was set up to teach you about prayer from the standpoint of Elijah Muhammad, from how he sees it, and in conjunction to how prayer is for Islam. So teach you about prayer, the who, what, where, when, why, and how to pray, the significance of prayer, the significance of the postures, the positions, how many times a day should you pray, the direction you should pray in, who you should be praying to, words you should recite during the prayer. But I am going to elaborate on that and say, don't stop with prayer. Use prayer to inspire your actions, to change your situation. White people will not just say, well, you know what? I think we've oppressed black people long enough. Let's give this up and let's be nice. Nah, that's not going to happen. White people are going to keep doing what they do. The white supremacists specifically are going to keep doing what they do as long as they can. We are not a threat to them. So we can either become a threat or remain oppressed. But prayer is a part of the discipline that we can establish for ourselves. But that discipline should translate in our actions. So this chapter, prayer, was from prayer service, prayer in Islam is from page 135 to 160. Yep, 135 to 160. So next week, we are looking at program and position. What do the Muslims want? And that is from, let's see. So that is program and position is from page 161 to 191, a good 30-page read. Program and position. What do Muslims What do the Muslims want? Page 161 to 191, next week's video. This week's video, page, I just said it. I'm tripping. I just said it. Page 135 to 160 for prayer service. Prayer service is 135 to 160. So make sure you get your read on. If you don't have your copy of the book, you slipping, you tripping. But the link is in the description for you to get your copy of the book, Message to the Black Man in America by Elijah Muhammad. Make sure you learn how to take the meat off the bones and use the meat to cook and make a great meal with it. I'm Joseph Ward. I love you all. And all the links to support me are in the bio or in the description. And thank you to everybody. My man, Jamie Basham. Everybody else. Oh, shoot. Hold on real quick. Let me give a shout out real quick. Couple shout outs real quick before I cut this off. I want to give shouts out to Ina. Thank you, Ina. Thank you for the support, Ina. Thank you, my man Jamie Basham. Thank you. And who else? That's all I can see for right now. Oh, Mikim. Thank you, Mikim, as well. Thank you, Mikim. Thank you, Ina. Thank you, Jamie Basham. Thank you for the support via Cash App. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you all. That's contributing to this platform growing and me being able to get into my community and do actual work in my community. I thank you very much. Love you all. Make sure y'all catch the next video.